With the first pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Phoenix Suns select Deandre Ayton from Nassau, Bahamas, and the University of Arizona.
On a high level for yourself. That's why you're down. That's great. Now go reach that level.
In the third quarter of game one.
Oh, up high and down hard.
Big body in front of you. Crowder looking, throws it alley-oop. Oh! Ayton puts it down. He puts it down. It's over.
The Phoenix Suns sit as one of the best teams in the NBA. After an out-of-nowhere finals run, the Suns are facing lofty expectations even in a loaded Western Conference. Currently, they've been living up to it as they're coming off of a franchise record 18-game win streak, holding one of the best records in the league. While Devin Booker and Chris Paul receive much of the attention for the success, and deservedly so, there is one player who's going to make a difference between the Suns winning the finals or not. That would be 4-year big man Deandre Ayton. Ayton, who is arguably already a top 5 center this season, has been showing numerous growth since the end of the last season's playoff run. Last year in the playoffs, Deandre Ayton averaged 16 points, 12 rebounds, and a block on a 67% true shooting percentage, including going head-to-head with the MVP Nikola Jokic. And it's going to be this sort of play from Ayton that elevates Phoenix this season. Now, things did not start off easy for Ayton and the Suns. Phoenix started this year going 1-3. Ayton even had a 20-20 performance in a last-second loss to the Kings. In that game where Ayton scored 21 total points, 16 of those came in the first half on only 11 shots. But in the second half, Deandre Ayton only shot the ball once, scoring only 5 points for the rest of the game. The Suns would then lose to a Harrison Barnes buzzer beater. It's a small sample size, but for the first few weeks of the season, Ayton had a huge discrepancy in the amount of shots he took in the first half versus the second half. For the first half of the games, Ayton was taking about 8 shot attempts, putting him at about 10th place of all centers. This is similar to guys like Jonas Valanciunas and Bam Adebayo. The second half tells a bit of a different story. Naturally, centers today take less shots in the second half where games are close. Anthony Davis and Nikola Jokic are the only centers who appear to take more shots in the second half. But Jonas ranks about 5th of all centers with about 6.6 shots in the second half. Bam is about 12th place of all centers, taking about 5 shots in the second half. Deandre Ayton dropped from the 8th most shots in the first half to the 56th most shots in the second half. On average, Ayton would take about 1.8 shots per the second half of most games. This is the 56th lowest in the league, on the level of Dwayne Dedmon and Daniel Tice. JaVale McGee, the Suns' backup center, was even taking more shots in the second half than Deandre Ayton. So Ayton was being completely taken out in the second half of games, a troubling sign for a team's third best player. However, things have seemingly changed since then. While it isn't the biggest improvement, Ayton is towards the top of centers in second half points and field goals. Albeit he is still around the 20th mark in the league, but that is forgivable since he has closers like Booker, Paul, and Bridges on the team. During the Suns' undefeated November, Deandre Ayton averaged 17 points on 12 rebounds with a 64% field goal percentage, including a 24-point, 11-rebound, 2-block game in the Suns' dominant victory versus the Warriors. And while Phoenix would go on to get routed the next night, it was no fault to Ayton as he had also had a 23-point night. However, Deandre Ayton has seemingly improved across the board. His percentage near the rim is up from 76 to 84%, as well as his shooting outside the paint has become a bit more efficient as well. Ayton has been known for his touch around the rim, but this season he is really putting it on display. His rebounding ranks towards the top of all centers this season, as well as being one of the most efficient scorers, specifically when it comes within the pick and roll, where he is averaging over 5 points per game. This is third most in the league. Ayton is also towards the top in the league when it comes from scoring from the post and putback points per game. Ayton, when paired with a shot creator and a playmaker such as Chris Paul or Devin Booker, is one of the most effective attacks in the league. From a defensive standpoint, Deandre Ayton along with Mikal Bridges have been making huge leaps this year. Despite not having the greatest block total, Deandre Ayton is averaging over 12 contested shots per game. This is at a rate similar to Rudy Gobert. Ayton has also been spearheading the Suns' defense by being a dominant force down low. Phoenix runs a lineup where their 1 through 4 is a perfect lineup for switching everything. This allows the 7-foot Ayton to stay down low, rebound, and defend the paint. Through a combination of Ayton and Bridges breaking out, along with Monty Williams seeming to develop as a head coach, Phoenix has added a major leap in their defensive rating despite not adding any major personnel in the offseason. Last season, the Suns ranked 9th in defensive rating with a rating of 111.3. Now they have jumped up to the second best defense in the league with a rating of 104.2. Ever since his 25-game suspension in 2019 due to drug use, Ayton has become a much more humble, down-to-earth player welcoming coaching from the likes of Monty Williams and Chris Paul. Ayton has been putting his stats aside to help focusing on the team win, even if he isn't the one filling up the box score every night. He won't hesitate to go up for a rebound, set a pick, or even keep his eyes up to find the open man. No, Deandre Ayton is doing anything and everything to help the Suns win. So why is he the key for the Phoenix Suns? One thing that makes Ayton such a mismatch is when comparing him to other top teams in the league. Many of them lack a superstar center to go against Ayton. Let's take a look at some of the top superstar centers in the league, some that Ayton admittedly does not have a good history against. Looking at Deandre Ayton versus Nikola Jokic, the Joker averages 26, 12, and 7 in his career against Deandre. Last year when the Suns swept the Nuggets, Jokic still averaged 25, 13, and 6, not too far off from his MVP stats. Deandre Ayton played against Joel Embiid twice last year. Embiid had a 35-point and 8-rebound game, and then a 38-point and 17-rebound game. For his career, Karl Anthony Towns averages nearly 30 points per night against Ayton, including having a 41-piece last year. Lastly, Deandre Ayton's averages against Rudy Gobert are a mere 11 points, 8 rebounds, while Rudy Gobert averages 16 points on 13 rebounds. While these stats aren't perfect, they do show that Ayton is at least a tier down from what most people consider the top 4 centers in the league. Now head-to-head isn't the end-all be-all for a player, but it does show a decent mark at where Ayton is at in the league. But now let's take a look at some of the top teams in the league and how Ayton specifically matches up. The Warriors have Kevon Looney, who's in their system is a pretty solid center, but is pretty average overall for the NBA. Meanwhile, Wiseman doesn't have too much NBA experience and is coming off of a meniscus tear. This season, Ayton had 2 20-point performances against the Warriors, being one of the few Suns to have consistent performances against that team. The Nets have LaMarcus Aldridge at center, which, to his credit, he is also one of the best pick-and-roll men in the league, but someone I think Ayton can easily outmatch. For the Bucks, with DeMarcus Cousins and Brook Lopez, they're just too slow to keep up with an athletic freak like Ayton. I imagine the Suns-Bucks rematch will see Giannis playing more at center, and we all kinda know how that one went. The Bulls have Nikola Vucevic, who's been having quite a down year despite the success of Chicago. Cleveland does have a few legitimate defenders with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, but I don't expect a Phoenix-Cleveland Finals series. The Jazz have Rudy Gobert. I imagine Gobert could slow down Deandre Ayton quite a bit, but it's also pretty well known how to attack Rudy Gobert, especially with a mid-range attack as potent as the one run by the Phoenix Suns. I think that the presence of Deandre Ayton will open up attempts for Booker and Paul. The Grizzlies and Clippers, even if you want to call them contenders, they only have Steven Adams, Ivica Zubac, Serge Ibaka, all solid defending centers, but overall they're people that I think Ayton can score and rebound on. Lastly, looking at the Lakers, if they do match up against them in the playoffs, you would hope that the Lakers would be smart enough to run Anthony Davis at the center position. In that case, I think Ayton can do a pretty good job keeping Davis out of the paint, although to his credit, Anthony Davis also does a pretty good job keeping himself out of the paint. So what exactly is my point here? Why is Deandre Ayton the key to the Suns' playoff chances? Right now, virtually all the top centers in the league, the centers that Ayton has struggled against, do not have a high hope for making a deep playoff run. The Nuggets season has been devastated due to injury, the Timberwolves are on the edge of making the play-in, the 76ers basically look like a run-of-the-mill team, and the Suns have an offense that can easily attack Rudy Gobert. But for most other contenders out there, Deandre Ayton is one of the best remaining centers, and he can be a huge mismatch on offense and a lockdown defender on defense. For perimeter-oriented teams such as the Warriors and Nets, the presence of Ayton down low allows for the Suns to play a more aggressive type of defense, knowing that Ayton can lock down the paint. Many of the top contenders will not have an elite center who can play offense and defense to match up with Ayton, and if Phoenix can exploit this mismatch well, there is no team that will be able to compete with them. And for those of you who are saying, well, what about Giannis? Giannis is probably the one person who's going to be the kryptonite to this plan with Ayton at center. Just look at how he did last year, so basically all Phoenix can do is pray that Giannis doesn't go off again. Alright guys, that's it for this one. If you liked the video, hit the subscribe button. I'll catch you all later.